All right, let's really dig into something fascinating today. We're talking about Waqf, Islamic endowments, a
Hmm.
concept that's genuinely shaped communities and, well, economies for centuries. For those of you familiar with Islamic finance, Waqf is probably a term you've heard.
Sure.
But today, we're going beyond the textbook definition. Our deep dive is fueled by a really foundational document, Al-Mir al-Sharia number 33, al-Waqf, or Sharia standard number 33 on Waqf.
Right. The AAOIFII standard.
Exactly. It's the blueprint detailing exactly how Waqf is set up, managed, and even developed within Islamic finance.
And what's so compelling about this standard, I think, is how it provides such a clear, robust framework for a practice that's deeply rooted in charity and public good.
Right.
Yet it also boasts incredibly practical and, frankly, sophisticated financial applications. So our mission for you, our listener, is to pull out those unique, maybe non-obvious insights.
Yeah.
So you truly grasp the power and versatility of this ancient yet ever-relevant institution.
Exactly. Because understanding how a concept blends philanthropy with such sophisticated financial management, it can offer fresh perspectives on wealth, community, and, long-term sustainability.
Absolutely.
It's incredibly relevant, really, no matter your background. It's truly a concept designed for endurance.
Mhm.
So let's start with the core idea. What exactly is Waqf? Our sources tell us that linguistically it means detaining, like holding something back.
That's the root.
Hmm.
And in Sharia, it's essentially about taking an asset, could be land, a building, even money, as we'll see,
Yeah.
and dedicating its benefits, its usufruct.
The usage, the fruits of it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Dedicating those benefits to a specific cause or group permanently without ever transferring the asset's actual ownership away from the Waqf entity itself.
Okay, so the Waqf itself kind of becomes the owner?
In essence, yes,
Yeah.
it gains a legal personality.
Yeah.
And the critical aspect here is why this structure is so significant. The standard clarifies Waqf is permissible, mashru',
Yeah.
and it's established by Sunnah. And consensus is meaning it's deeply rooted in Islamic tradition, agreed upon by scholars.
Hmm.
But crucially, it's binding,
Binding.
meaning once you've endowed something as Waqf, your ownership as the Waqif or endower just ceases. It's gone. It's a permanent dedication of that asset.
Wow, that permanence sounds incredibly powerful, but does that ever create inflexibility? I mean, unlike some donations maybe that you could revoke.
Right.
Once something is Waqf, it's fixed. It becomes its own entity serving its purpose forever, right?
You're hitting on a key point. It is permanent in principle, but the framework actually includes surprising flexibility, which is honestly why it's endured for centuries.
Ah, okay.
The standard outlines several types, illustrating just how versatile it can be. First, there's charitable Khairi Waqf. That's probably what most people think.
You're like for a mosque or school.
Exactly. The income and benefit go directly to a public charitable cause. Then there's family or private al-Ijri Waqf. Here, the income initially goes to specific individuals, often descendants, relatives.
Okay, so like supporting your family generations down the line.
It can be, yes. But typically, after those specified individuals are gone, the benefit then reverts to a broader charitable cause. So it serves family welfare and eventually public good.
Interesting. That's a common form people might not immediately associate with charity then.
It's quite common historically.
Mm.
We also see joint whack, which is, well, a blend. Income gets shared between family members and charitable causes right from the start.
A bit of both.
A bit of both. And perhaps most ingeniously, there's whack on oneself.
On yourself. How does that work?
Yeah, the endower actually retains the benefit during their own lifetime. And then, after they pass away, it transitions to a designated beneficiary or charity. It shows real flexibility.
So it's not just for building a grand mosque then. You could effectively set up a fund for your great-grandkids' education, and then it transitions to wider charity.
That's a possible structure, yes.
That's quite the long-game philanthropic strategy, isn't it?
Mhm.
It really shows Waqf is this versatile tool, supports public welfare, sustains families, even provides for the endower, all within that Sharia framework.
Exactly. And to understand how it really works, the standard breaks it down into 4 fundamental components or pillars.
The pillars, okay.
You meet all 4 for a valid Waqf. The formula, the declaration, the endower who gives, the beneficiary who receives, and the endowed asset, the thing itself. Each has specific conditions.
Got it. Let's unpack that first pillar then, the formula al-Siyah. This is how you actually make it happen, right? The declaration.
Correct.
Our sources state it's simply the offer or declaration, and get this, it doesn't require acceptance.
That's right. It's a unilateral act. You declare it, and subject to conditions being met, it's done. What's interesting, too, is if a specific beneficiary, say, rejects their share.
And say no thanks.
Yeah. Their right to that bit is voided. But the Waqf itself, the main endowment, it still stands.
Hmm.
That portion just gets redirected to a general charitable purpose. Ensures the Waqf continues.
Hmm.
The standard also says this declaration can be verbal, written, or even implied through customary practice, like if everyone knows a certain property is used for Waqf.
So pretty flexible on how you state it.
Very. And surprisingly, it accepts addition for the future. You could say, this Waqf starts the 1st of next year.
Plan ahead. And you mentioned permanence earlier. But is it always forever?
Good question. The general rule, the default, is perpetuity. It's meant to last. But it can be temporary if the endower explicitly specifies a duration.
Like for 50 years.
Exactly. After which the asset would return to the original owner or their heirs. That's a crucial point of flexibility, suggesting it's not always as absolutely rigid as permanent might sound.
Makes sense. Okay, second pillar. The endower, al-Waqif. Who can actually set one up?
It could be a natural person, an individual.
Yeah.
Or it can be a legal entity, like a company or a foundation. If it is a legal entity, the standard specifies the decision has to come from its General Assembly, not just the board.
So the ultimate authority underscores the seriousness.
Right. And the endower, whether person or entity, needs to be competent to dispose of their wealth. Basically, legally capable and of sound mind.
So there are clear safeguards, like if someone isn't legally capable or maybe they're deep in debt.
Exactly. Their WAC might be void, or at least subject to challenge. For instance, if someone is indebted, their WAC might need approval from their creditors.
Right. You can't just give away assets creditors have a claim on.
Precisely. It ensures fairness and prevents harming others through the act of endowment.
Okay. Now, pillar 3, the beneficiary, al-Muqaf alayh. This is where it gets really broad, isn't it? Who can you dedicate a WAC to?
It's incredibly broad.
Yeah.
The standard says the beneficiary must not be a forbidden entity, basically. The purpose can't be illegal or immoral according to Shari'ah.
Fair enough.
But, crucially, they don't necessarily have to be a charitable entity, especially not when the Waqf is first established, like in the family Waqf example.
Right.
You can even establish a Waqf for non-Muslims for non-sinful purposes.
Really?
Yes, and even for the wealthy. It's not restricted solely to poverty alleviation, though that's a major application. It highlights a very inclusive nature.
That is inclusive. What about beneficiaries who don't exist yet, like future generations?
Absolutely possible. The standard explicitly says the beneficiary does not have to exist at the time of the Waqf. You can set up a Waqf anticipating future needs or future people.
Planning for the unborn.
In a way, yes. And if a designated beneficiary, maybe a specific family line, ceases to exist down the road,
What happens then?
the Waqf doesn't just end. Its benefit is redirected to a general charitable cause, ensuring its continuity and perpetual benefit. It defaults to charity.
Wow, built-in resilience again. Okay, finally, the 4th pillar, the endowed asset, al-Muqaf. The actual stuff. What can be a waqf?
It must be property with value, something tangible or intangible that has recognized worth. It must be known, clearly identified. And, critically, it must be owned by the endower without any third-party claims or options hanging over it at the moment of endowment.
Clean ownership.
Clean ownership. And crucially, the standard states that the WAC itself possesses its own legal personality and independent financial distinctiveness, separate from its manager or supervisor.
So it can, like, enter contracts, owe money?
Yes, it can incur its own rights and obligations. Now, as for what types of assets,
This is the exciting part.
it is. Real estate is the classic, of course. Buildings, land. And this includes things attached permanently, like fixtures.
Makes sense.
Movables can also be endowed, things like vehicles, equipment, books, either on their own or as part of a real estate Waqf.
Okay.
And this is a key point, money. Cash can absolutely be endowed as Waqf.
How does that work if it's meant to be permanent? You spend money.
Good question. The money itself forms the capital. It's then used for permissible lending or safe, permissible investments. The standard mentions mudaraba, a profit-sharing partnership.
So the profits from investing the money are distributed.
Exactly. The capital is preserved and invested, and the returns go to the beneficiaries. It's a cash WAF.
Very clever. What else?
Shares in companies and sukuk Islamic bonds are also permissible WAC assets.
So you can endow a portfolio.
You can. You can even endow common property, like an undivided share in a building, or just a single building floor. Or easement rights, like a right-of-way over land, or even the right to build on another's land, known as tali.
That's getting specific.
It covers many scenarios, and perhaps most surprising for some, the usufruct. Remember, the right to use or benefit from a leased property can be Waqf.
Wait, how? You don't own the property, you're leasing it.
Right. But you own the right to the income from that lease for its duration. So you can make the rental income you receive from subleasing, for example, a Waqf for the remaining term of your lease.
So the income stream itself becomes the temporary Waqf.
Precisely. For the duration of the lease.
Wow. So you're really not just limited to land or buildings at all. This opens up a huge world of possibilities for philanthropy, for investment, from a single floor to a stock portfolio to rental income.
It's far more dynamic than often portrayed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so once a Waqf is established with all these potential assets, who looks after it? That's the vital role of the supervisor, right? The
Nazir or supervisor. And our sources detail pretty strict rules for their position and conduct.
I bet. So who guides them?
Their management is primarily guided by Shari'ah principles. That's paramount. Then by the specific conditions the endower, Waqf, laid out in the Waqf deed.
Ah, the founder's wishes.
Exactly. Unless those conditions conflict with Shari'ah or if they actually harm the Waqf's overall benefit. In such cases, the judiciary can step in and overrule a condition.
So there's oversight. What are their main jobs?
Their duties are quite extensive, all aimed at ensuring the Waqf's longevity and fulfilling its purpose. They have to maintain, preserve, and manage the property. That's basic upkeep.
Makes sense.
They handle leasing out Waqf assets and lands to generate income. They're also tasked with developing Waqf assets, improving them, making them more productive. This can be done directly or often through Islamic financial institutions.
Actively growing the pie, not just maintaining it.
Yes. They invest any endowed money using those low-risk Sharia-compliant methods we talked about, like mudaraba. They can even change the features of Waqf assets for the better.
Like,
say, converting an old residential building into more profitable commercial shops. But they'd need the right approvals for that.
Okay.
They have to legally defend the Waqf's rights, paying its debts and obligations, and, of course, distribute the net income to the beneficiaries according to the Waqf terms.
Seems like a lot.
It is. They can even, under specific conditions we should touch on, replace Waqf assets entirely.
We'll get to that. Anything else?
Yes, they should utilize takaful, Islamic insurance, to protect the assets. And critically, they must prepare detailed accounts and reports. Transparency is key.
Right. But surely there are things they can't do to prevent conflicts of interest or misuse.
Absolutely. There are clear prohibitions. Generally, supervisors cannot lease the Waqf property to themselves or their close relatives or dependents.
Obvious conflict of interest.
Right. Unless they get specific judicial approval, and it's demonstrably at a fair market rent or even higher. Protects the Waqf.
Good.
They also cannot pledge Waqf assets as collateral for debt. That would risk losing the asset. And they cannot lend Waqf assets. Again, the purpose is preservation and income generation, not lending out the core asset.
Okay. What about borrowing against the Waqf?
They can only incur debt on the Waqf for essential maintenance or repairs or to cover existing obligations.
Yeah.
They can't borrow money just to distribute income to beneficiaries if the Waqf itself isn't generating enough.
So no borrowing to pay dividends, essentially. You pay from earnings.
Exactly. It protects the capital. This whole structure really highlights a robust system of checks and balances. And the standard explicitly states the judiciary has oversight authority over Waqf management.
So there's always recourse if things go wrong.
Yes, to ensure preservation, resource development, and accountability. It's designed to be self-sustaining but also supervised.
I found that detail interesting, that surplus income from one mosque's Waqf can be used for another needy mosque. It shows that deep communal spirit, doesn't it?
It does. It points towards the broader benefit being the ultimate aim, allowing flexibility even between different Waqfs under certain conditions.
Right. So a core idea woven through all this is how these assets are kept productive, how they grow over time. It's not just the initial gift.
Not at all.
It's this long-term vision for sustainability.
Precisely. And that brings us to how the income is actually used. What's the priority?
Yeah, you've got income coming in, you've got beneficiaries waiting, but what comes first?
The standard is crystal clear on this. Spending on the maintenance and repair of Waqf assets or rebuilding dilapidated parts must precede distributing income to beneficiaries.
Must precede. So asset health first.
Always. This priority is so strong, the standard says it applies even if the endower didn't explicitly state it. It's an inherent requirement.
Wow.
They also mandate creating an annual maintenance reserve from the income. A portion is set aside each year.
Like a sinking fund.
Exactly. And that reserve should be invested safely, with the investment income being added back to the reserve. Beneficiaries generally have no claim on this reserve until it's deemed surplus to requirements.
That's brilliant foresight, isn't it? Prioritizing the asset's health over immediate payouts ensures that stream of benefit can continue for generations. It's built for resilience.
Absolutely. And that resilience extends to active growth, too.
Yeah.
The standard doesn't just allow, it actively encourages the investment of WAC income and assets.
So not just preserving, but growing.
Yes. This can happen if the endower stipulated investment, or during periods where income accumulates, like waiting for beneficiaries, or simply from surplus income after expenses and distributions. But the key is, it must use Shari'ah-compliant investment and leasing formulas, and they must be low risk.
Low risk, protecting the core capital.
That's the priority.
Now, that this definitely isn't some stagnant, dusty old system then. Our sources show it really embraces modern financial approaches, right? Especially for developing, say, Waqf land.
Absolutely. The standard mentions several modern contract structures. Istisna. This is basically a contract to manufacture or construct something.
Like commissioning a building.
Exactly. And the standard explicitly includes build, operate, transfer, BOT contracts under this umbrella. So a developer could build on Waqf land, run the facility for a set period to recoup costs and profit, and then transfer it to the Waqf.
Very common in infrastructure projects.
Indeed. Then there's diminishing musharaka. This is a type of partnership. The Waqf and, say, a financial institution might jointly finance a building project on Waqf land. Over time, the Waqf buys out the partner's share until it owns the building outright.
A gradual ownership transfer.
Right. And another one is Ijara Masufa Fial Dima, which is essentially a forward lease agreement. A financier might lease the Waqf land long-term, agree to build specific structures on it, and then those buildings are transferred to the Waqf upon completion.
So different ways to finance development without the Waqf necessarily putting up all the capital up front.
Exactly. The overarching goal stated in the standard is to employ all available means to develop Waqf assets while always sticking to Shari'ah, the endower's valid conditions, and adapting to modern requirements.
Adapting to modern requirements. That's key.
It is, and they explicitly recommend seeking assistance from specialized Islamic financial institutions for investment and development. It acknowledges the need for expertise.
Okay, this next detail was genuinely surprising to me when I first read about it. Replacement is istibdal. What if a Waqf asset, say a building, becomes totally run down or just isn't useful anymore? Can you actually sell it, get rid of it?
Yes, you can. That's istibdal. The standard defines it clearly as removing the endowed asset by selling it and buying another in its place to achieve the Waqf's benefit.
So, swapping it out.
Eventually, yes. It's permissible if the original endower allowed for replacement in the Waqf deed, or even if they didn't, it's permissible if the asset simply becomes dilapidated, ruined, or genuinely unusable for its intended purpose.
Even if the founder didn't allow it.
Yes, and here's the really critical point that shows its adaptability. The standard says even if the endower stipulated non-replacement, if the asset is ruined or genuinely cannot be used effectively, it can still be sold and replaced, usually requiring judicial approval.
Wow. So practicality trumps the original stipulation if the asset fails.
The underlying benefit principle takes precedence. This flexibility is absolutely key to the Waqf's survival and relevance over centuries. Imagine a Waqf building in a neighborhood that completely changes replacement, allows it to adapt.
Makes total sense. Are there conditions?
Oh yeah, strict conditions. The asset must be genuinely unusable or its benefit negligible. There shouldn't be enough funds in the Waqf reserves to repair it. The sale price must be fair, not detrimental, no gabem fahish. The replacement must clearly benefit the Waqf's objectives. And crucially, judicial permission is usually required, especially for real estate.
So lots of safeguards.
Absolutely. And generally, the rule is you replace with real estate for real estate. But if finding a suitable replacement immediately is difficult, the cash from the sale can be held securely, often by the court or a trusted body, until a proper replacement is found to avoid mismanagement.
So it's truly not this rigid, unchangeable thing frozen in time. It's designed to be dynamic, resilient, ensuring that original intent of the endowment continues to provide benefit, even if the physical asset itself needs to transform over time.
That's a perfect summary. Dynamic and resilient.
That's a powerful lesson in long-term asset management right there, applicable way beyond just WAC.
Indeed.
Well, what an incredible deep dive into the world of Waqf. We've really unpacked a system that is surprisingly robust, incredibly flexible, and just designed for profound long-term impact. From its clear legal definition and those diverse applications, family, charity, even oneself, to its sophisticated management rules and those proactive investment and replacement strategies, Waqf is far more dynamic and, frankly, relevant today than you might initially think.
Absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it just underscores how deeply principles of philanthropy and social welfare can be integrated really successfully with sound financial structures to create truly enduring institutions.
Right.
That historical backing, the meticulous conditions for every pillar, the ongoing judicial oversight, it all contributes to its remarkable resilience across centuries. It's quite something.
It really is. It's a powerful testament, isn't it, to how traditional concepts aren't just relics of the past. They can evolve, they can adapt to modern financial landscapes,
They have to.
always keeping that core mission of continuous benefit right at the heart of it all.
Well said. And this brings us perhaps to an important question for you, the listener, to maybe mull over.
Yeah.
In a world that's constantly searching for sustainable solutions, for social good, for impact investing, what other traditional frameworks, perhaps from different cultures or histories, might hold surprising keys for modern applications, particularly in this realm of long-term asset management and community development?
That's a great question to ponder. Food for thought. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope this has given you a valuable shortcut to being well informed on this fascinating and enduring topic of Waqf.